Give it a little bit of this. And okay, what's up, everybody? Internet, Webflow family, effing growers, Finsweet universe. We're here with another episode of the Effing Growth podcast live stream, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we think Webflow gets wrong today. So it's going to be an action-packed episode. We've got an outline of some of the problems, and then we're going to present some solutions, and we'll see where this conversation goes. But before we get too far into this thing, let's effing grow. Okay, what's up, Joe? Got a special episode for the folks today. You want to give everybody a little debrief? Do we have any announcements before the show today, or are we just jumping right into it? I think we're just jumping right in.
We're jumping right in. This is a big one, a special one, very different than what you're used to if you come each week to watch our show. We're talking about what Webflow does wrong, and specifically what they do wrong in community. Before we get started, we're going to get into our disclaimers. Again, if you know us, every episode starts with some disclaimers, and these are going to be important.
Yeah.
Disclaimer one.
Go for it.
When we say we in this episode, we are referring to the greater Webflow community. We are referring to everybody. This is a message from the community, not from me personally, not from Rymar personally, not from Finsweet as a company. We are talking about everybody. So when we say we, it's you, it's your agency, it's your team, it's your career. This is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I want to caveat your disclaimer. I'm going to disclaimer the disclaimer. In that we obviously do have a lot of personal experience with this community. And not only that, but people also are very candid with us in the community because we're not Webflow. They come to us with gripes. They come to us with issues, lots of different things. And so as we are representing all of you, we are representing ourselves as well. And it's going to be hard because we're so passionate both about this community. And so we will be obviously drawing from experience in certain places, but we are trying to come at this whole thing as the community themselves, not necessarily, a Webflow agency, although that's what we are as well. Let's see. The other thing is we're not going to talk negatively about Webflow. Our goal here is not really to, just get all heavy and just complain. We will talk about some things, obviously, that we think they get wrong. It's probably going to be a little different than some of you all are expecting because we're not going to talk a ton about technology, and we'll explain specifically why right after this. And so we're going to talk mostly about community, about communication, about how this interaction is happening between the people who are building their business around this platform and the platform who's supporting that. And this is just an interesting dynamic to try to explore, and we're going to do our best to navigate this, in a respectful and productive way. So that's the end of my piece as the disclaimer. Joe, any final thoughts before we move back into, the show itself?
Yeah, well, our goal, as part of our disclaimer, was going to be to get Vlad to set up a meeting for us, meeting with us. That was our goal here. We're going to give a message, hopefully get everybody excited, and then have Vlad do a one-on-one with us to talk about how we can come up with an actionable solution to go and fix this problem.
Yeah.
Vlad has already agreed to this one-on-one with Twitter. So I don't know, maybe our new goal can be, let's distract him for the day. Let's make this message so powerful that he's just thinking about it all day long and he cannot wait for that meeting. Yeah. So we're really excited about that. Let's get into it. And the first thing we're getting into is what Webflow does right, which is a lot.
And 100%. This is why we're building our business around this, right? There's no denying we love Webflow. Our show every week is about how to help people grow their Webflow business. We're both committed. Long before I joined Finsweet, I was in the Webflow world and provide value to this community. I've interviewed twice for positions inside of the Webflow community department. We'll talk about a little bit of how that interplays into this. And so we love this platform. We have committed a big chunk of our lives and resources and time, etc., into supporting this platform. And so we all agree, beautiful product, it's, all of these things. So I think they get a lot of it right. What else is on the list here of what they get right?
A lot. Well, they have created a product and a platform that's literally changing people's lives. So without even getting into the specifics, we have people that are changing their day-to-day life, their career, their professional goals based on a product and platform. That is powerful. So you can think of anything that they do wrong, but remember that right is huge.
Yeah.
It's game-changing. I may not be living where I'm living right now if it weren't for Webflow. I may not be married to my wife right now if it weren't for Webflow. I may not be doing anything that I'm doing right now if it were not for Webflow. And I know that a lot of people listening right now have that exact same view and that exact same success with this platform.
Yeah. And just to harp on this is the reason. So I got into the world of web development more than a decade ago. And very soon after that, the change it allowed me in my career led me to want to start a meetup in the world of WordPress. I'm sorry, not. I think I might have said Webflow, but WordPress. And so I started a WordPress meetup a long time ago because I wanted to provide that value and teach people, like, look, behind the computer screen, you're spending all this time playing around and doing all this other shit online. Like, look, you can earn an income here and make money. And that was life changing for me. It allowed me to change my position in life, my station in life, like opened up doors that I didn't think were going to be open to someone like me. And there was a passion about sharing that. Same thing when I found Webflow. And this is why I started 3 years ago, a Webflow meetup. I feel this technology, the ability to take these ideas out of my head and put them and build them into interfaces online. Like, I'm building things in Webflow that I never dreamed I'd be able to build without learning how to code. And so, like, when you unlock that power inside of yourself, and this is going to be something we talk about a lot, like, there's something just powerful about that. And so that's, Webflow has built this tool. It allows us to unlock this power inside of ourselves as designers, as creatives, as whatever it is. And so 100% they got that right. Like, they're empowering people that, I don't know that they started this no code revolution, but they're owning it and they're leading it in a number of ways. And I think that's going to be transformational over the next few years. And so they do so much right. I don't want to, we're going to get wrapped up for the rest of this episode kind of talking about the things they do wrong. And so anyway, every other episode that we've done is essentially about what they do right. So I think maybe we'll leave it there. Their education, right? We've all been to the university. We've all laughed at McGuire's jokes and the comments between him and Reamer. So it's just, I don't know. It's going to be hard to really not just lay it on too heavy here, because I think what we're going to get into, but anything else on the front
We're done.
end? Yep. Okay. That's it.
No more what's right comments. Now let's get into what's wrong. Let's get into the real juiciness of this episode.
And this is what everybody's been waiting for. So let's actually state, I want to state that there's been a forum post about some of this. It's been the top forum post. If you're not a forum visitor, they just shut it down, I think, the last couple of days. And it talked a lot about what Webflow gets wrong from a technical standpoint. And so we just wanted to clear up that if you want to explore that thing's been beat to death. From a technical standpoint, if you want to go back, that's been for 3 months. People have been exploring. Some of that has been pulled into this conversation, but we're going to try to stay away from the technical side of this conversation for 2 reasons. One, we're not on the technical team, and we understand how hard it is to build a technical product. Right? Webflow is incredibly complex, and we don't know what they're dealing with from a technical standpoint. Are they rebuilding the entire platform? Are they going to release something tomorrow that's going to blow our minds? And so, we're not there. We can't really speculate on this stuff, but we can speculate on community and communications and some of this other stuff. And so, again, we're going to channel and focus some of what we're talking about here mostly on that, community and communication. Did I miss anything on that little section of the forum post? I know a lot of people have been talking about that, and most people expect us to kind of dive into features and product bugs, and we're not going to. That's not where we're going to spend the time today. So
no. And I want everybody to understand that the product updates and some of the features that you're looking for that are not on the platform, they will be coming. That maybe they're not coming today, maybe they're not coming tomorrow, but we know that Webflow is working on these things. Webflow is built as a landing page creator. They are built on a system that is just for landing pages. Then they added CMS, then they added this, and they added this. And if they just keep adding to things, it may not be as strong as a platform rather than stepping back and taking the right technical approach. So I think Webflow is in the right direction. If you're really unhappy about the product, just trust them. Trust that Webflow is doing I'm serious, trust that they are doing their best. I've talked to people at Webflow. We have a lot of friends in Webflow, and I'm always very interested in the work that they're doing. So a little disclaimer on the product, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Let's get into the community and communication stuff. That's what this episode is all about. And that's how we can make an actionable change. Everybody listening, that's how we can do something here, the community.
Yeah.
So community.
And just going back into that, like the product transparency, I think, is where we will talk about. So we're not going to talk about the technical issues here, but we do want to talk about like the way that they communicate and share things that are happening inside the organization, right? If we had to start with our first criticism, it would kind of be there. It would kind of be, and they've started acknowledging this a little bit. They just brought back Vlad's quarterly updates, but even that kind of left me wanting more from things that I think we'll talk about as we progress through this. I like the fact that he dropped off the radar for a year and a half, that there hasn't been a whole lot of communication, that the wish list itself has not been updated and is actually like full of spam and all sorts of stuff, which again, I know they're working on, but the fact that these things have gotten to this point that the community is basically like, if we feel out of touch, right? There was a day, and I know this has changed because at one point there were 60 employees at Webflow when I started, and it was easier to connect and interact, and now it's huge, and so I don't expect the same thing, but the effort there to kind of communicate and be transparent about what they're building, sharing roadmap updates, like I just wish there was a little bit more in that context. Joe.
Yeah. And I think the reason that there is such a disconnect with community is because to be part of the Webflow community, to lead the Webflow community, you have to have exceptional knowledge in Webflow as a platform. I think that's a requirement to be a Webflow leader. If you are taking people that know this platform and love this platform and wake up every day, go out of bed and sign into this platform, you need to know the platform. You need to be a pro. You need to be able to help people. You need to be able to communicate with people. And for the past year or 2 years, or maybe even 3 years, there has been a disconnect in that the people managing this community and running the community and helping the community don't know the platform that well. There's that disconnect, and it can be fixed.
And to clarify here, there are a lot of people on the Webflow team that know the product. We know that they're involved in the community. There's a ton of people that are very active in the community that also work at Webflow. What we're talking about specifically is like the leadership of their community efforts for the last 2 years have been kind of organized by people who don't really understand what's happening on the platform or the power that we talked about before that Webflow gives its users, right? If you are not a doctor or an architect, it's going to be hard to lead a group of doctors or architects. It's a very specific knowledge field that you have to be familiar with that space in order to be able to empathize with the group. Community is all about empathy. Creativity is about empathy, right? A lot of the people that use these tools are very creative. We're makers, and so to be able to connect, to be able to understand that, and we'll talk about a little bit of this, in this next section, we're going to kind of line item different things and experiences that have led us to kind of come to this conclusion. But that missing link there between the people who are organizing community efforts and the people who actually work with and use this platform has been a disconnect. And part of that reason is because the community, it's a little different around Webflow. Like, we're using this tool to build our business, to make money, to earn a living, right? And so we're staking our future on this technology. And we saw today when Webflow goes down, even just for an hour, even if it's because of one of their third-party providers, it's like panic, right? What's going on? I don't have access to my own servers to do things. I don't know how to troubleshoot. So like, we're in this together, y'all, right? We're banking on this for our futures.
We are.
Okay. And so that creates a very different dynamic between the people who use the platform and who are part of this community than like other SaaS companies, right? So if you're running a community at another SaaS company, any other SaaS company, and there may be a few exceptions of other companies that kind of do the same thing where it's like tied to a revenue center. Let's say it's Udemy, right? I could imagine a creative community around Udemy, and you're making your money off of a platform like this, a learning platform. Very same thing. The technology is being powered to make their money. I would imagine the community has that same kind of demand. I don't know how you would put somebody who's not also a teacher in charge of that community, right? So same concept here. You have to kind of know that power, the ability, like you need to be able to see something that somebody built and be like, I understand what it took to build this. And that's how you can connect. And I think that's been missing, right? Like, that's why some of these events, and this is maybe, let's go into the how we know, because now we can get into maybe the other things, laying out the specific case here. We're going to go into legal mode. Unless I skipped anything, Joe, do we need to, did you have any other thoughts there?
Well, yeah, one more piece, that we as a community, we crave information and knowledge because we're growing our businesses here. We are every day trying to make ourselves better and our businesses better. So when we communicate with each other, when we communicate with Webflow, we want real information that I can read and say, wow, I'm going to be better tomorrow because of what I just heard today. That's powerful. And that is something that's missing.
Yeah.
So, well, how is that missing? Why is it missing? How do we know this?
This is something that we maybe give the benefit of the doubt in the context of a growing business, right? Webflow is going through a hyper growth phase. We're going to give them the benefit of the doubt in the context that they're working really hard to fix the problem, and that there's just a misalignment of communication here, right? We think Webflow really wants to connect with the community, and we think the community really wants to connect with Webflow. And I don't think there's a lack of wanting on either side to make this connection. However, there does seem to be some kind of like disconnect between those paths. And I guess what we're like outlining here is how do we get to that? Like, how do we get to more openness in that context? And I was going to bring up a point here, Joe, as a reply to your last point, and I kind of lost it here, but it'll come back to me. So let's get into how we know. How we know some of these things, right? Some context, if you will. Other than people sharing their thoughts and feedback with us, other than us being in the community, how do we know this stuff, Joe? How do we know that they're a little out of touch here on some of these things?
The community events. The events that are created, the initiatives that are created in community, there's no excitement. There's nothing there for me that makes me say, I want to be there each week or I want to be there each month. And it's because the information that's given is not relevant to me. I'm a business owner. I'm a Webflow pro. I am trying to give Webflow Pro to as many people as possible. And I don't have any resources from these events to go do that. And a great example is something like No Code Conf. We had a great time at No Code Conf because we got to see everybody in our community, everybody that we've only seen a little thumbnail image of for the past 2 or 3 years. But the reality was the content there was just not relevant to us. It wasn't relevant to me. I didn't like it. And a lot of people that were there agreed and said the same thing. Maybe not publicly, but we get messages all the time. We have a lot of activity coming to us, giving us this very transparent information. And that was a very common theme. The content was not there.
There was a lot of chatter about No Code Conf being such a special event because of what you said, because we were all in the same room, and some of us got a chance to meet Webflow leadership. Some of us got a chance to go behind the scenes. Oh, that was the thing that I wanted to point out before, is that some of us do get a little bit more information than others in the community, right? So Joe, you and I work with people in the Webflow team and closely, and other people that are leaders in the space do get some of that information, but the general community sometimes I think is left a little lacking. And, so that's kind of what we're trying to represent a little bit here. But going back to the No Code Conf, it was electric, right? Because we're all in the same room, and it's hard to have that many people who all believe in the same thing in a room and not feel electric. But we all came from different places in the world, right? A lot of people traveled long distances to get there, and the content was so low level. It was like entry level Webflow 101. And again, we give them the benefit of the doubt because they had just hired the person who organized this. It was just a few months into their tenure, and it was electric. So it was a success in my book. We all got to meet, and that became a great thing. But as you go then moving forward and you see the other things that they do, you see the coffee talk event, you see the Webflow World Tour, you see even this most recent update from Vlad, and it just feels very sterile, right? Like I remember connecting, when Nelson used to do the live streams with Vlad way back when, and I felt like I was sitting in a room with Vlad. And there was something about that I was like, okay, I trust this company. The reason I made the switch from WordPress to Webflow had to do with seeing and interacting with Vlad and feeling like I understand these people. I understand this company. Like I'm part of this. And that just then kind of stopped. And that was shocking to me. And I just keep seeing that trend repeat. Going back to the coffee talks, I went to those coffee talk events and often they felt like some enterprise sales seminar, which, hey, you got to sell. And I understand that sales and marketing is often associated with community, but don't mistake them for the same thing because they fall into the same department. Community is already bought into this product, right? We are the product. We're building, we're using, we're interacting. We've already paid you. We don't need to be sold to, right? And so there needs to be some separation there between what the sales and marketing activities are and what the community stuff is, because that leaves these community events feeling like they're not actually clicking with the community, right? They don't deliver that value where you just feel this, I need to go back to the next one, right? Yeah.
And these events, they feel more like a presentation, that we are being presented with information rather than giving a chance to interact with others, rather than being able to communicate and learn something from somebody else, or give your knowledge to somebody else, or take knowledge from somebody. This is not in any of the events. It's just not present. And I think a core reason is a lot of the organization of the events are not done with people who have exceptional knowledge of the platform.
It's hard. Joe, I told you an anecdote the other day. I was in the Facebook group early on, and this is probably a year and a half ago. And somebody asked a question in the group about could they build something with Webflow? And the answer from the Webflow person in the community team was, we think you can. Webflow's awesome. Excuse me? Like, how do you not good enough. How is the answer not, yes, you can build this part of it, but no, you can't build that. Here's a resource to the university, and here's someone on the outside that's doing a really good job at this. And so if you build your community team with people around this, it becomes over a year and a half of just bang, bang, 2 years of this. Like, what do you think's going to happen? At a certain level, people just start tuning out. And I don't want to beat a dead horse at all here, but the World Tour left me feeling the same way, and the Maker Day, Joe, you participated, as part of the Maker Day. Like, talk a little bit about, that hackathon experience or whatever that
surface level. Yeah. All the content around it was surface level. There was no real review of projects and what people did. There was no communication during the event to share what you're doing so that others can talk about it and comment on it and offer suggestions for what you can do as a next step. It was just surface. It was just these quirky little comments and funny little things that really did not add any value to my experience in building. And there was just nothing. It was absolutely nothing. And it was a lot. There's such a push for metrics that as we are seeing more and more Webflow community activities, it's metrics based. It's not as much value based. It's how many people can we get up and how can we track these people exactly so we can make decisions on marketing. That's not how you make decisions on marketing if you want to engage people, if you want to create a community. And a great example is, I don't even think I signed up for Webflow World Tour because you had to auth your Webflow account, which was a new initiative to better track people coming to the event. So I didn't even sign up. I remember it was that day and I said, oh, okay, I guess I'll go to one of these events. But they move from, hey, this is really important. We really want you to come to this and learn from this and engage with this, to here's how we track you so we know exactly who you are in our community and we can better market to you in the future. That doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think
you have the same thing with the
Bevy. I was just gonna say, like, the Meetup transfer to Bevy was just such a train wreck. And for those of you who don't know, I've been, since Meetup, official Webflow meetups were a thing, I was in the mix. I've been in the mix, right? I was one of the early Webflow meetups, and we used to meet on the Meetup platform. We used to use Meetup as a platform, and when they made their last community head of community position, they came in and they wanted to switch to Bevy. And they may have had a perfectly good reason for Bevy. Maybe she used it in a previous work experience and thought it would be a great platform. And I think Bevy is a good platform for like online conferences, but for some reason they chose to build authentication with your Webflow account instead of letting just people use an email and I guess single sign on or whatever. But because of the way the API was structured, this meant that everyone that's logged into an event, everyone that signed up for an event, had to see that API authorization screen, like if you're connecting it to MemberStack or Zapier or Parabola or something. And you're like, well, why does Bevy or why does Webflow need to access my events, right? Like, why does Bevy or why does any of these tools? And that created so much friction for us as organizers. And it was something that was brought up repeatedly. And the answer repeatedly was, this is the decision we've made. And it seemed to be so counterintuitive to their principles of customer first and just fix it, right? The answer was that, oh, we already have a couple thousand people that have done this registration process. And I'm like, well, isn't your community hundreds of thousands of people? Imagine how many people you're stopping from joining because you have this gate here versus just having an email capture. Grab an email capture and get your marketing game. If you want your marketing people doing something significant, like get them on the lead scoring game. All you need is an email from me. Like, we live in the big data world, right? Put the email into the box and start lead scoring me. Start seeing where I interact with your site if you can, and find other ways to like nurture me down this thing into wherever you want me to be, as opposed to like putting these big hurdles up front when I just want to attend an event, right? I know the frustration that we had as Meetup organizers, and we just felt like we were beating our head into the wall. And I don't know what's causing this. I don't know what's happening at the community team internally. There was just a big public blow up on Twitter. The head of community quit, and a big blazing ball of glory, and took the rest of the community team with her, apparently. And so like, there is not a whole lot of a community team at Webflow right now. Which is kind of one of the reasons we thought this is a perfect opportunity for us to say, hey, like, what's going on here? Like, we see this. We do see this in the community, and it seems like nobody's willing to just say something. And I get it, because like, my hands were clamming up at the beginning of this episode. Like, I don't want to log into my platform tomorrow and find out that my account's been turned off because we're criticizing the company or anything, right? And we don't think that's going to happen, but not a lot of people speak up about some of this stuff. And so we just felt, hey, let's lay some of this stuff out. And again, the next section, we're going to go into kind of laying out how we think we fix some of this, because I think this is our responsibility. We are the community, right? So it's not like, hey, Webflow, fix this for us. It's like, hey, community, what can we do to do better here, right? How can we then fill this gap that if Webflow's not going to do it in one way or another, like, how can we do this? And this is where you've seen us try to build some momentum in the community. This is where we have started doing things, just events that are above and beyond, right? Clone Comp last year, the Global Open House this year was a collaboration with all of the different meetup organizers. We've pushed the limits on some of this stuff. The ugly website party last year, and we're ramping up for Clone Comp this year. And so, like, Joe, do we want to go through just some of this momentum before we go into presenting the solution, or where do you think? I want to like turn over the hand over for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. The global open house, it was a few. Yeah. Okay. Let's bring up that comment quick. Yeah. So the Bevy, I don't think you said that it actually dropped a lot of people off, right? Didn't the amount of organizers go from some high number to some like ridiculously low number? When
we made the swap from Meetup platform to Bevy, a lot of the major established groups did not come over to the new group because there was no easy way for them to transfer their membership. So we had 100 members in our Meetup group, and I was like, okay, okay, I can rebuild 100. But some people had 1,000, or some people had, I know the Israel group had like 5,000 people in their group, and they're like, we're not coming over to Bevy if we can't move all of our people over here. And so there was this like drop off in organizers, and there was like this huge loss of momentum in that meetup group while they kind of brought new people in. And now we're just building momentum. We're 6-7 months into this other thing that we were doing, and that's now falling apart. Like now that's not happening. There was going to be a whole launch, a relaunch for the meetup organizers. And so I don't know what's going to happen in this interim. And it just seems like there's so many people that are dying to get involved, right? They want to give back to this community, and they're just not finding easy ways to plug into that, which again goes into why we are trying to do some of this. Go ahead, Joe.
And a really easy short-term fix for a lot of the problems we said is to build these platforms on Webflow. We are using a platform that literally will let us build a meetup organization website, a database of meetup organizers that can actually communicate about Webflow on Webflow. And the reason why it's not being done like this, I would imagine, is because the people running it don't know how to build this. But if you went to a lot of the big agencies and said, hey, we want to build this meetup platform and it does this, this, and this, and people can sign up and they can do this, there are a lot of agencies out there, a lot of freelancers that can just go build that. And being on the platform, using the platform to grow the platform is something that unfortunately is not being done and can be done. And we want to do it as a community. So,
well, yeah. And this is something that caught us by surprise. Again, when we did Clone Comp last year, we thought it was a natural way to say, hey, showcase your sites. We're using this clonable showcase. We're showcasing the power of Webflow. Like, let's just do all these things using this showcase. It's easy to vote. You can vote one time by liking this project. I know it's tied to a Webflow account. They have to have a Webflow account to participate. You know, like it's using this tool. So we wanted to like, again, leverage and show off this tool. And then you see Webflow do this Maker Day event, and they use some other platform to show the showcases. Yeah. I'm like, you got a showcase right here.
I forgot about that.
Like, it's right here. What are you doing? Why do I have to go through this other thing and register with them to showcase my website that I built in Webflow? I don't know.
Man, I wish you didn't say that. I actually forgot about this entirely. You just brought it back to my mind. I remember the submission problem with Maker Day, and it caused an immense amount of stress for about an hour for our team, and I'm sure for a lot of other teams, that the submission did not work. We could not submit the work, and it said, you can't submit your work that you were just busting your ass for 24 hours. If that was built on Webflow, I bet you there would not be a problem like that. And if there was, we'd be able to fix it in just a few minutes. Or it just...
We're not eating
drives me nuts.
Our own no-code dog food, right? Like, and this goes back to... People on the community team are not necessarily makers. They're not no-code makers, so they don't understand the power of of being able to do this. So I got to imagine in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm hosting a hackathon. What's the best, most relatable or established hackathon submission platform? Let's go use that. You know? Because I don't know that I can showcase sites, and I don't know that I can do this stuff, or I don't feel comfortable enough. So I'm like, let's do it over here in a system that maybe I can control and manage, as opposed to let's use some form and Airtable and connect that with Zapier to this thing, and let's do whatever. I don't know. So again, maybe a little too carried away, but yeah.
Let's go into the track record. Let's go into the events here.
Yeah.
Some of the community events. So we have had an effort from the community to do more community-driven events. The Global Open House is a great example. We just did that earlier this year in March, I believe. There were 200 plus concurrent live attendees, more than 350 people coming through the event. It wasn't perfect. We didn't even know how many people were going to come. I wish we put more budget into that to buy more space in the Gather Town. But it was electric. People loved it. People were sending us messages about this. People were telling us we have to do this again. And even Vlad came and said, this sent shockwaves through the company Slack as people started sharing screenshots of the event. That sent shockwaves through my body. That's awesome. I mean, knowing that the Webflow team is loving this event, they want to do more of these, and it was run by the community. The community put on this event.
Yeah.
So that's just, it's amazing.
But this was led, we'll say the community, but this was an effort that, again, Colleen Brady and I, who run the Sarasota meetup group, came up with after discussing how do we shine more light. So when this new community manager came in, and this was towards the end of last year, like I was basically the person that helped them get familiar with all the different meetup organizers. And one of the ideas we thought to build exposure for all of these new meetup groups that were coming on was, why don't we throw a big open house? We can put our event hosting experience behind this and then get all the other meetup organizers to just glom on to one big event. Let's have everybody put this event in their, in their event page. Now all the meetup organizers get to have an event. They all get to kind of claim credibility. We'll go get some real high quality speakers. And that momentum, the momentum that generated, like we never in a million years thought we'd have 210, whatever it was, almost 400 people throughout the course of the night show up to this thing. We were expecting like 150, right? Based on initial signups. But then you had Vlad show up and he had him tweet about it. And so like, boom, this explodes. And so like, this is where I think the community working together with a little bit of sprinkle of the Webflow machine and a little bit of empowerment coming and do this stuff can be so much more powerful. Same thing with Clone Comp. Right, we're planning right now for this year's Clone Comp. Last year we had like 186 submissions. 186 registrations and 106 submissions over the course of the 3-day competition. This year, I think we've got 130 something people already signed up, and we don't even have the website up for it yet. It's just a little landing page. And so we expect hundreds of submissions and participation this year. And Webflow is taking the right step. They've already said, hey, we're going to support this. So they're going to come on as a platinum sponsor for this, and they're going to help us do this, which is amazing. Again, I'm not saying that Webflow is not listening. I see Webflow in the, I see Waldo in the comments here saying that they're listening and, you know, that they're hearing us. And so we see this. We do see your effort here and we appreciate it. We think like where it's been successful, it's been great, but there's just been this other side of things that we've kind of outlined up to this point that leaves us wanting a little bit more, which I think, you know, that's what these live streams are about. This is why we started doing these live streams. We got 180 people here hanging out, listening to a Webflow stream about, you know, and this is on the fly. You know, every week we got 50, 60, 80, 100 people coming together, like, and this is happening all over. And so how do we connect these dots, right? So how do we start to connect these dots? How do we, let's shift gears now, Joe. We're done with laying it out. So let's go into what that solution starts to look like, what we're thinking about here. How do we start pulling all of these nuggets together into the next step?
So I want to refer to Vlad's excellent keynote speech at No Code Conf. This, in my eyes, was the best content in all of No Code Conf. Absolutely wonderful speech about Webflow, websites, and the future. He made some really interesting points about how there are big advancements that serve as a catalyst for extreme growth. So he gave an example of the printing press. There is a catalyst, and now we have all this books and content and a much better way to distribute that content. Music recording, there's a catalyst, new technology. Now people can record music, radio-ready music in their own homes. This is a catalyst, and it's making this exponential growth. And this is what we have in Webflow. We had the web, now we have Webflow as a catalyst, and now website development is in a whole different world. Awesome. So now we have the Webflow community, and we need that catalyst. We need something in here that's going to light a fire in what the community already is so we can have that exponential growth. And that catalyst is going to be our proposed solution. And it's what we're calling the Webflow Community Alliance. Webflow Community Alliance, what is it, Reimar?
Yeah. So it's essentially taking what we've been doing and figuring out a way to formalize the structure, right? So it's kind of a part of what's happening with the Webflow meetup groups internally, part of what we've been doing with this event planning committee, and part of what we're doing with like collaborating with other agencies and in the space. Like we're talking with other agencies in the space to plan this Clone Comp event. Last year, the Clone Comp event had, you know, we had JetBoost, we had MemberStack, we had MakerPad, we had Flamingo, we had Flowbase. Like we had all the players kind of in the space as sponsors, and how do we take like that group that's forming of these leaders in the space, and how do we kind of create this alliance where like on a regular basis we can create this kind of programming, these type of events, right? Like we're limited to our budget right now. Right now, it's Finsweet that just pays for all of this. We do live support. We are doing programming on a regular basis. The amount of time that I commit to helping other meetup organizers and mentor other people in the space about planning and organizing their events, you know, like we're already doing a lot of this. What we'd like to see is a way to get a little bit of funding from Webflow into a pot that we can use for these type of efforts, right? To organize these type of things, to figure out programming on a weekly, daily, et cetera basis inside of this co-working space, right? Right now, this co-working space that we have, this virtual co-working space that we held the open house in, it's electric and people are in there all the time. Like sometimes we'll have our like company meetings and people will just walk into the space, and that's great, but it's expensive to grow and manage that. Right. And so like, can we create some kind of system where leaders in the community themselves have access to some of the funds that are being spent internally to not deliver this type of value, right? Like we've done everything we've done. And a lot of the stuff I did before I came to Joe, right? So like some of the stuff was already happening with zero budget. Clone Comp last year is zero budget, right? We got some money from sponsors and whatnot, but no advertising dollars. Global Open House, zero advertising dollars, no marketing budget whatsoever. And so like, how do we build some kind of structured alliance that allows us to expand and do more of this, right? And in my mind, this would involve people from Webflow. This would involve other agency leaders, other products in the space. And we create a truly collaborative atmosphere to just the meetups need speakers. Okay, hey, let's have some of these folks show up to speak at events, right? We need a venue. Hey, let's do this all in one space so that now you build momentum so that if I know I want to do something Webflow related, I'm just going to pop into this space and see what's going on. And maybe I can sign up to this board and see like, oh, the space is open for show and tell this week, or so-and-so's teaching about this week. Mackenzie Child's doing a talk about this. You know, we've got, Timothy Ricks in here doing one of his lectures live. Like, let's do all of this. Like, where is this stuff happening? You know? And so like that in my mind, I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know exactly the logistics of this. This is why we wanted to sit down with Vlad to talk about this, because we just think there's opportunities there. We think there's a ton of opportunities to figure out like, how do we amplify this and solve both those problems, right? How do we solve the community's problem of wanting to connect with Webflow and Webflow's issue to connect with, like the high level user? Webflow, you do a good job of reaching new users, entry level stuff, Webflow University, like your marketing, campaigns, ads, whatever. Like, yes, we love it. Beautiful. Keep doing that. Keep bringing new people into the world. But once they get into that fold, once they hit a certain level of threshold of knowledge, like where do they go? Like, let's find a way to branch that out. And so that's kind of, what we're pitching here. Joe, did I miss anything?
Well, no, that was very well said. And to add to that, we can be so much more powerful as a team. This is not a proposition for any specific person to own this, not Webflow, not any agency, not any person, that this is a team of people, a team of experts coming together and figuring out how to get people interested past the surface level stuff. How do we get people talking about this platform, or not even shutting up about the platform? Talk to all your friends about it. Talk to everybody about it because you're obsessed with it. That's me. And I know a lot of people out there, you're in the same place, that you cannot stop thinking about Webflow. So let's formalize this in a way that everybody can come together to get to that next level in community. Yeah. And we have some actionable next steps in events that we've already had some really good success with the global meetup, with Clone Comp. We'll talk a little bit about how we can do more of that. So the global meetup, one of the reasons why there were technical issues in the beginning of that event is because we just didn't pay GatherTown enough for a bigger server size. Because at Finsweet, we don't have a lot of money. We are bootstrapped. We are not funded. So a few $100s, a few $1,000s, that means something significant to us. So we didn't upgrade it as much as we could. Imagine if we could do more of these, 2 per year. Imagine if we could just say, hey, this room's open for 5,000 people, 20,000 people. It's not that much money for a company that is already paying this money to community teams. that are not doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
Clone Comp. This can be absolutely more too. That comp was a success. It's going to be a success this year. Let's do more of these. Hackathons, right? Hackathons are so popular in the traditional development environment, the traditional community of developers, but now we're developers. Even if you don't know how to code and you're using Webflow, you're a Webflow developer. So you can now be part of these hackathons. These can be all the time. We can have these self-run, we can have different events, we can have a lot of fun and learn so much by formalizing these events and letting the community run it.
Think about like cause-driven events, right? We talked, okay, so community stuff, we're doing a little get together, and we've talked about how can we on our team use Webflow clonable stuff to build resources for like a nonprofit, right? So how can we do a 3-day hackathon where we build some cool assets that just then get shared with some service group? Maybe it's restaurants, maybe it's whatever the industry is. And so like, imagine if Webflow was, again, creating this type of programming where we could rally together, people can build, there could be some prizes, some incentives, some cool things, plus some social credibility of giving back with these skill sets. And now you've empowered like all sorts of fun, interesting things. And so like, we would love to help program this stuff. Like, we're already programming this stuff. It's just that we're a small team, right? And Webflow is quite a bit bigger team. But if we look at the resources they're putting on the community team, right? Like 2 or 3 employees, like we've kind of got that matched here, right? Like, so let's figure out how do we pour fuel on that fire? Like, we can stretch a budget. Right? Give me the budget that you would give a full-time salary personnel to run community next year. Give us that budget as this Webflow Alliance and watch that we turn, that budget into a machine of like interactivity. I see people in the comments in here that like, I'm doing this kind of thing, I'm doing that kind of thing. I agree. Like, there's so many people doing cool stuff with the community that it'd be, hey, now you don't have to pay for a Gather membership. Come use this open co-working space. Let's help you promote it. Let's help you market that. Look at all these channels. And now you start building this beautiful, like, collaborative business environment. Like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is what this movement is about, is it not? It's about changing the way businesses work and about how we exchange value as organizers and creators. And like, we're building things and like trying to make a living off this internet, off this tool. Like, why not, again, go back to eat our own dog food? So I guess that's like I just sorry, I get a little passionate if you haven't noticed about some of this stuff.
Can you bring up a comment from Zuki Shaw, please? Does Finsweet really have capacity to do all of this, even with extra moolah? No, we don't. That's the beautiful, beautiful, beautiful part of this. This is not Finsweet. We are not saying that Finsweet is going to use this money. This is the Webflow Community Alliance. Finsweet is a small part of that because we want to be part of it and we're passionate about it. Everybody in the community, yes, you can make this happen with that extra moolah.
Right.
So please be very, very clear about this. This is not us. This is everybody. Everybody listening, everybody in the Webflow community.
Yeah, and I think there's so many people out there. But again, if you are the community and you're out here and you're checking out Twitter, you're checking out Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on the forum, like you're actually in the space because you're living it, you're breathing it, it's how you're making your living. You see this stuff, you see people trying to do these and you're like, oh, why isn't that happening here? Right? And so like, if you're not in that community and if your job is just 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever it is, organizing people in the Webflow community, maybe you don't see these things. You don't find ways to shine light on them, right? And so it's not that like everyone in the Webflow marketing team has to be a Webflow power user, but some of the core people on that community team should be, and I see this again, Waldo just announced the user advocacy group. I'm not sure what that's going to be about. I don't know how they're going to restructure this community team over the next few months, whatever it is. I do know something's probably coming in November with no code conf, I have to imagine. So like they haven't just stopped, doing stuff, but where are these efforts, percolating? And that's, I guess that's just the question I would ask is, what's the lowest friction path to kind of taking some of this stuff on? So what are your thoughts there, Joe?
There's even more we can do. We want this to not be just an event every few months. This is not, let's just put on more Webflow events. This is, let's create a structure so that all day, every week, there are things going on. There's activities, there is learning, there is education. And I'll share one of my ideas that I've been passionate about since the global meetup. This is, I think, so important, and this can only be done as a community. After the global meetup, I was so excited. It was amazing, electric. And the next morning, I woke up so early because I could not sleep thinking about this idea. And this idea is what I'm calling the agency incubator. It's a way to bring people together with different skill sets, with different goals, and pair them to create agencies. One of the top things that we get asked at Finsweet is, how do I go from freelancer to agency? Or how do I go from full-time job to Webflow freelancer? People asking, how do I make that next step? With a community-funded effort, a way for everybody to come together, we can have curated networking events. We can have a way for people to find other people to create agencies. How many of you say, hey, I'm not a designer, I can't design, I'm just a Webflow developer? And then how many people say, I'm just a designer, I have no interest in Webflow development, but I love Webflow as a platform? Let's get these people together. And this type of thinking and this type of activity, maybe Webflow is not going to see any return on this immediately. This is not something that we get metrics on and we really understand how this is happening in real time. But over time, this will be huge rev for Webflow. These are not just, hey, let's have fun and have a good time. I love business. I am actually trying to make Webflow a better company and a bigger company because my company is directly related to their success. So I want to do everything I can. I want the community to do everything they can to get Webflow to the next level. I used to pay $16 per month for Webflow, right? Like everybody, you come into Webflow in the free account, you say, okay, let me go with the pro. I'm ready for this. And you're paying $16 a month. Great. You know how much Finsweet pays for Webflow each month now? Going from freelancer to agency? I can't even tell you.
Tell them.
It's a crazy amount. It's a crazy amount. It's in the thousands per month. And you know what? We're actually happy to do that. It actually feels good because this platform is growing our business. It's making our business better. So it's okay to pay that. But imagine we start multiplying that. And imagine we have all these $16 per month people saying, you know what? I'm not a freelancer anymore. I'm going to create a team. I'm going to create this agency that's going to rule the world. That's going to rule Webflow. That's going to rule my world. That is powerful. And we can do that if we are connected in the right way. And one company can't do this. Two companies can't do this. We have to do this as a community.
Think about searching for resources, job hunts, like finding and connecting talent. Like all of this stuff could take place if you had, again, like a virtual hang spot, like an amplified version of what we've been doing, you know, on a small scale here. And so, so much, but like we can't even get into it. Like we would need a whole nother episode to actually get into the list of ideas that we have for how to do some of this stuff, right? Like it pains me sometimes when I go, like I want to see this thing, be so excited, and then I show up and I'm like they did it again, you know? And so like let's change that tide. Like I mean, we haven't had this much interest in an episode ever live concurrent. You know, we've been pinballing from like 170 to 190 here, just back and forth, you know, concurrent viewers. And so it's like people are interested in this. Maybe they were just hoping to see us make fools of ourselves or say something really stupid, you know, but that's not what we're doing here. Like our intention is not to bitch or to moan about like things that we don't think we can fix. And I think, you know, like the closest parallel I can draw is to like that WordPress community. But there's a very big difference between like the WordPress world and the Webflow world, in that WordPress was open source and Webflow isn't. And I think when you get this kind of community that is building their business off of this, the community needs to feel, even if only in perception, that they're anchored to this ship, or that they have a direct connection to this ship. And that's why I think you see or feel some of this energy around what's been going on in the world of Webflow for a while. It's that it's so many people feeling like they're on the outside of that ship, right? They're just on the outside of this closed bubble. And so, like, how do we roll that out? How do we bring some of that down? Again, if only in perception, if only in an experiment to figure out how you bring more people in and start, like, really think about the growth of Webflow as a tool over the last year or two. Like, there's people all over the world like desperately trying to figure out, how do you plug into this? How do you take the next step? And I think that we could all work together. We could all find ways to come together and change and do some of that a little bit better. So, with that said, Vlad, call me maybe. That's actually all we're gonna play for copyright issues. But no, and Vlad, to his credit, by the way, Vlad yesterday, when we announced the video of this event, replied within minutes of that post or an hour of that post, whatever it was, replied back and said, I'd love to sit down with you and chat one-on-one. And so that was our entire goal here. I see Webflow employees in the comments. We'll go into some Q&A now, or thoughts. Anything that there's so much that we missed. I'm sorry we weren't taking Q&A today like we do typically, just because we really wanted to just stay focused to the message we were trying to deliver here. But yeah, now I think we can take a little bit of time. And Joe, did you have other thoughts?
I would love to bring up a comment from Poisty. Maybe hosting a clone comp that's based around a solution to these problems, and we can slowly build on top of that. Sure. Imagine we had a hackathon that was used for social change. So everybody's build, everybody's clonable, everything that's created is then handed off to some greater good, to some social change, or to some organization or something. We can do that. We can create amazing things in a very short period of time. It just needs to be structured and needs to have the right resources to go and make that happen and to make it a real success. So yeah. We can do that.
Yeah, and I will ask one thing of the audience. If you're watching this and you agree with what we're saying, or if you like, couple things, like the video, please. Let's make sure we get as many likes on this video as we can. Second of all, share this with somebody. Share this with somebody that works at Webflow. Share this with somebody in the community. Like, our all call here is going to be like, let's us solve this and let's invite Webflow to the table. That's kind of what this is, right? We have a reach in the community that we think is significant, and we have talked to other agencies, other people, other players in the space that are interested in doing this with us. And so now it's like, hey, Webflow, can you come play with us? Like, let's figure out how to formalize this thing and really, like, do something special. And so that's kind of the whole mission here. Let's see. How do we join this new group? Just drop here. Go to that FS. What is it? FS-OL2V. I'm going to share this in the comment here, and drop your email at the bottom of that form. I'm going to pin this thing. Let me pin this comment if I can here. Drop your email at the bottom of that page. There's a little email subscribe form at the bottom of there. Throw your email inside of that, and we will collect a list of people who would like to be a part of this that are already not on our radar. So, Carrie, we'd love to have you, by the way.
We have a few people saying that they want to bring back the Vlad and Nelson communication, this type of event.
Bring back Nelson.
Maybe one of the reasons they stopped.
Bring back Nelson. Bring back Nelson. We'll start a petition on change.org for bringing back Nelson.
I can imagine that one of the reasons that may have stopped is Webflow's growing. Vlad now has a lot more responsibilities, and sitting down for an hour per week or per month or whatever is difficult. That Vlad has 1,000,001 things to go and worry about. So we don't need Vlad to do this. Vlad is running the ship. He's running the whole company, but we have hundreds of very qualified professionals to sit down with people and do these same types of talks. And that's the beauty of this community alliance, that we can pick one of those hundreds of people, 7 of those people, and now we have a new show every day that's in the same format that people are asking for.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but let's produce it. Like, look at the difference in production value in like what we're doing with the critique show and this show here, the live voting, the audience Q&A in real time. And then when you go to this other thing, it's just like a Zoom webinar side by side. And like, I get it. It's safe. It's stable, you know, like maybe less risk to mess up or make a mistake, but like, we're building in public, y'all. And I know it's a big company. Yeah. I get it. But the community stuff, people are going to have leeway. That's what I'm saying. Like, separate this. Make this us, the community itself, so we can mess up and we can learn. And you could like write a case study for how communities do this thing of this scale, right? And then you keep your enterprise, sales, marketing. You control all that. You do all that. But it would be amazing if like eventually we started seeing, instead of one no code comp, imagine no code comps popping up all over the world, right? Imagine little mini conferences popping up because this meetup group turned into 30 people, which then started working with the next country, and that's 50 or 100 people now. And now they got 1,000 people, and we're gonna have no code Europe, and we're gonna have no code conf, you know, South Asia and in India and South America, whatever, right? Like, Webflow doesn't need to organize all this. What they do is need to help us facilitate, right? They need to like help us, and us being the global us, we community, like figure out how to do this stuff effectively. Don't try to micromanage the community at the top, right? Like, you can manage events and manage your marketing and manage your like communication flows, but the community is organic, and it's gonna be a different beast. And you know, like, let's find a way to. Oh wow, look who's watching this here. This is really great stuff. Thanks for the feedback. We'll definitely discuss internally what we can do. So there you go. The message is being received. Thanks, Bryant, for tuning in. We love y'all, but let's figure out how we can do some of this stuff a little better. Okay, let's see. Joe, what else? Comments? You see anything else in there? 181. Jeremy is saying, hit the like button. Yeah, wow. Yeah, please. Per quarter, Connor Finlayson. Bring back Nelson, yeah. Johnny, this initiative, transparency, feedback, and the way it was approached, this let's work together is really inspiring. Hurts a bit because I agree with many. You have the things I think you're saying there, but he appreciates the way that was put together. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think this is one of those things where like, if we can't say this, who can say this, right? If right, you know, if we, with this level of involvement and just experience, can't just say, hey, like, let's figure out how to like do this, then I don't know who would be able to have this conversation. So a lot of this was really just us trying to represent you all out there. So let's see. This one thing I wanted to address. I'd like to get more engaged in the Webflow community. I'm a bit siloed at the moment. Would love to be a part of something and a recommendation. We have a whole episode, coincidentally. Listen, we didn't plan this, by the way. We put this at the bottom of our list on the growth. If you know anything about the growth show, if you watch us regularly, if you go to growth.finsweet.com, there's a list of topics there. We did seed this topic, right? But we seeded it at the bottom with 0 votes. And it just, when it rose to the top, that's when we addressed it. We gave ourselves an extra week to prep, so we did delay it by a week. But if you see, the next episode after our makeup episode next week is about how to get involved in the community. And so we've been working with the different meetup leaders. I have a whole template I'm building in ClickUp. That's how to plan an event, how to organize a group, how to like recruit people to plan events. Like, we have resources for all this that I was prepping for part of a meetup launch, but that's kind of fallen to the wayside. So like, these resources will be shared. Randy, if you're interested, you know, jump into the live stream in 2 weeks, and we will have some updates for how people can specifically get involved with these efforts, and maybe some update from Webflow themselves.
And I'm really glad that Randy is asking this. That is one of the initiatives of this community alliance, that if you want to get involved, we need to create a system so that anybody can get involved, and you can choose your level of involvement. We at Finsweet, we have full-time people, and we're trying to bring in more full-time people just to focus on community efforts. Not all people can do this. Not all agencies can do this. That's okay. That's why we need to come together, so that someone like Randy can go into community, give all of what he can give to community, and that's going to be shown in a greater power.
Yeah.
Not just putting out one clonable and it gets disappeared, or not being part of an event and waiting next year for the event to come. Randy wants to get involved, and Community Alliance is going to get Randy involved.
Yep. Yeah, and Connor brings up a good point. Some of the OG Webflower community advocates like Nelson, Matt, or Waldo, leadership positions at Webflow, and we'd love to have them as the representatives for this alliance. You know, like we
Sure.
There's a number of people in this community that are employees at Webflow that would be amazing to have as part of that advocacy group. And I think they are. They tend to be the power users because they empathize. They, like I was telling Joe, it's like, imagine like the X-Men, except for you're not mutants, you're just Webflowers, right? And so like when you figure out you have this superpower, like you're part of this club that anyone can join, right? You learn how to do this, you now have the superpower. And Webflow is that tool. But unless you understand your power, unless you understand what that is, it's hard to understand where this should evolve or how, you know, it kind of needs to be interacted with, how the community could like really connect with this. Somebody was playing devil's advocate here. I wanted to see what they were saying. Let's see, playing devil's advocate. Do you think we expect too much from Webflow? What other large company makes you feel part of their dev plan and talk with their CEO? This is where we talked about before about this is a different product, and they also opened the door to this. This is kind of how they started. So they set the precedent early on when they started this company. This is the relationship they made between us and the product. And so maybe it is expecting too much. Maybe it's not, right? I think that they're building a business that we're all reliant on as a product and a tool. And I don't think these conversations are going to like disappear. I think it's incumbent on them to figure out how to solve these problems.
And I don't think that you should be relating Webflow to a lot of other SaaS companies. A lot of other SaaS companies are add-ons to your business. They offer one thing for your business to help you do something, like a Stripe, right? We use Stripe to manage our payments. It's super important. It's a great company, but it's just one little piece that helps us do one thing. Webflow is a SaaS company that is changing your life. It is growing your business, creating your business. It is changing your profession and your career. So, you know, I think you can't really make that relation to other companies, and you shouldn't try to relate Webflow to other companies. And I think Webflow has a unique position to really do something different, like this community alliance. Other companies, that wouldn't really matter or wouldn't happen because people are that passionate. Nobody's waking up in the morning thinking, oh, Stripe. Yeah, I can't wait to log into my Stripe dashboard. That doesn't happen. It happens with Webflow. So it's a whole different game.
Yeah. Let's see. We got from subs, 100, almost 200 views. Okay. Just trying to go through the comments here and make sure we didn't skip any. I'll put this one just. What a great move you did bringing Reimar to Finsweet. Joe, we didn't talk about that, but Joe scooped in. Yeah, Joe swooped in and caught the goods, you know?
I did. I remember you sent me that Slack message, said I was denied, and I felt kind of bad for you, but secretly I was actually super excited. I'm like, oh yeah, this is my chance here. I always thought Reimar was number one. In community, when you look at this no-code community in Webflow, from the beginning, I've just always seen him as a magnet for getting people involved and getting people excited. So when he was rejected from Webflow, I jumped on the opportunity immediately. The second I had the thought, I wrote him a message and said, how do you do whatever you're going to do in Webflow here at Finsweet? And from there, it was just a perfect connection. We've had a really wonderful alignment of values and goals since day one. So yeah, really good decision for the company.
Well, and I think that goes, most of y'all don't know my background, but before I was in web and even up till recently, like I've been a community builder in the real world, right? And so like most of my community building efforts have nothing to do with the digital experience, right? I'm just over the last few years learning how to bring this digital experience into what I've been doing for years in the community, which is actually pulling people together actually finding ways to build consensus and then making change in a community, whether that's through city hall, whether that's through hosting town hall events, whether that's through like organizing big conferences, right? I organized 2 WordPress conferences here in Tampa, 500 attendees one year and 350 attendees the other, right? And so like I have experience doing this, and one of the reasons I think like I'm so happy here, because I wasn't looking for a job. I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll work at Webflow because it's Webflow and it's amazing. And when Joe, like it took a lot of time for me to shut down my agency and my operation to do this. But the only reason it's worked out is because it gives me full autonomy. And I'm not tied to this point to Webflow sales. I'm not part of their marketing team even though I guess my CMO is a title, even though I've been thinking about asking you to switch that to Chief Community Officer. But I'm not restricted in what I do, right? It's just go do this, offer value, like create value in the community, right? Like there's not been one thing I said, hey, Joe, I want to do this. Like I want to, even Clone Comp last year before I was an employee, I came to Joe and Joe was like, you know what? We want to make this thing really pop. We're going to build a website for you. And so even before I came on, like there's just been overwhelming support for this and for the community. I think like the amount of money that Joe spends out of his own pocket giving back to this community, whether it's for Sweet.js support, whether it's for the CMS development, like he's got a whole team of developers building products that we just give away for free. And yes, it's proven to be good marketing, but it wasn't that way at the beginning. And that's kind of the same ask we're having for Webflow right now. It's like, hey, we don't know how to tell you that this is going to be a good investment, but we know it. We know it is. And if we find ways to work together, we can make sure that everyone benefits, that it's not just, one agency or the other. That's not the ask here. So,
no.
Yeah, digress. Colleen, I have to give a shout out to Colleen, by the way. She has been like, I can't give enough praise to Colleen. She's helped me organize all of the meetups that we've done up to this point. She's very actively helping organize and put that stuff together. And we wouldn't have been as successful for the open house, Clone Comp, any of the meetup stuff without her. And I know a lot of other people in the community feel the same way. So official, proper shout out. Let's do this for Colleen. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Carrie, what you got here? I probably would have stopped Webflow if I hadn't found Finsweet. That's that's
nice. Did you use our referral link when you signed up? I'm kidding.
What I do think is interesting is that if you did take some time to roll through that forum post, that Finsweet's name came up all over it as, solving this, have you checked that, and so we've built a business.
Because we want to help.
Well, we've built a business seeing the gaps between Webflow and their users. All we're saying is now we want to help Webflow fill that gap on the community side. It's it. Like it just breaks down to that. If you got to showcase anything, it comes down to that. Like we as core users see the gaps. We've filled those on the product side as best as we can, and now we're trying to do that on the community side as best we can. And we'd love to do that with not only you all as a community, but Webflow as well. Sarkis in the house.
Absolutely.
What's up, Sarkis? We got Kyle. We got everybody. By the way, everybody's been here. I've tried not to call people out because I didn't want to do one and not everyone else. But like there's a lot
of people here.
Yeah, the Webflow folks.
We still have a lot of people watching. Nobody's dropping off. That's why we haven't ended this.
That's right. Let's see.
It's true. Look, I mean, we have 180 people in here.
Yeah. Any other questions, thoughts? Webflow shower. No, we don't need a Reddit Webflow shower thoughts. That's funny.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Let's see. Yep, I'm trying to just look through these comments that started from before to see if there was anything that we missed, but I think that's pretty much it. I think we got the gist of it. We can keep this thing time.
We sent our message.
Yep. If anybody want to, Bryant just grabbed a one-on-one with us. Do we want?
Nice.
Rohan, I'm worried about doing the co-work today with the amount of people. We'll probably. This is one of those things where like we would love to just take this conversation into an interactive environment. But gather, the cost to just
Too
own
expensive.
and manage a gather space, it's like $500 to $1,000 a month for the size that we would need to do that. And we almost did. I almost talked Joe into it, by the way. We were going to go hard at this, and then we were like, all right, let's figure out this other thing.
Let's wait.
We won't do the gather space today just because I think we'll flood it. But we will do, like, let's plan some workshop. We should plan some workshop to talk about this.
Absolutely.
Maybe after our community one. So how to get more involved in 2 weeks. We have an episode, how to get more involved in the community. Stay tuned for that. Go to the growth.finsweet.com website, sign up for the email there, join us for that episode. After that episode, we will jump into the co-work. We'll have a collaborative. We're going to plan that. In 2 weeks from now, we're going to plan a collaborative session to figure out how we can do some of this stuff. So it'd be great to see you all there. What were you going to say,
Nice.
Joe? Yep. Twitter Spaces. We're experimenting with Twitter Spaces Fridays at noon. If you're not, we're doing unofficial Webflow Twitter meetups on Twitter Spaces. So let's see. Lacey Kessler +1 for Webflow shower thoughts. They were talking about thinking about. I think it was Sergey was talking about thinking about Finsweet in the shower and everywhere. Let's see. Okay.
That's why you can't relate Webflow to other companies, because you're not thinking about other companies in the shower. It's just Webflow. It's a different kind of environment, and we have to approach it as a different environment.
Yeah. Here's Sergey. My best Webflow idea is coming.
A lot
in
of
the shower.
things. A lot of.
That's right. Yeah, Victor. We appreciate you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please hit that like button on the way out. We would appreciate you. Share this with somebody. 1,368 playbacks, 186, I think, max concurrent viewers. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. I think that's it. We're going to wind it down at here. Any final thoughts, Joe?
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for everybody for coming, listening, and staying.
Bye.